Hey crew, how you doing? I just wanted to create this very quick video because we're doing something super exciting at the moment. We're actually in the process of building out a software product, and it's something that we wanted to, try and take a little bit of a different approach with. First of all, we wanted to keep ourselves accountable. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and document the process along the way. For those who don't know, my name's Andrew. I'm CEO here at a company called Moonward. We're a software development agency based here in Brisbane. We're 100% in-house, so our whole team is 100% in-house here in Brisbane. And what we do is we create amazing software products and awesome software businesses for our clients. Now, with that in mind and having said that, what we wanted to do is we wanted to try and do something which is a little bit unique, and we wanted to actually build our own software product. Very similar to, say, if you have a personal trainer, you hope that your personal trainer is in good shape, or when you go to the dentist, you assume that your dentist is going to have good teeth. We want to do a very similar thing where when our clients come to us, they know that we don't only create great software for them, but we're good at creating great software for ourselves. Sort of that classic saying of, we want to practice what we preach. So we're going through this exciting process of building out a software product. And what we want to do is, along the way, we want to take you through the steps that we're going to take, having learned from building a heap of different products for our clients. And this is obviously the first video where I want to introduce you into the concept and sort of highlight a couple of the key principles that we're going to work with along the way, because we're going to try and do this in a little bit of a unique approach. Now, what we see it all the time, where people come to us with a really cool software product idea, and the first thing they do is rattle off 1,000,001 things that they want to do with that software product. And sort of having learned from that and having learned from the challenges that brings to the table, we're going to introduce some key principles that we want to follow. So the first thing that we want to do is, with the software product that we're building out, is we want to keep it as lean as possible. I'll touch on the idea very shortly because the idea is very simple, but we want to keep ourselves accountable to keep the first version of the product extremely lean. There's a great book out there for those who are interested by the founders of Basecamp. They're also the guys that built Ruby on Rails, so they've got a heap of experience in this sort of like software space. The book's called Getting Real. And one of their key principles is half, not half-assed. And we're wanting to do something very similar, where we want to keep this scope as lean as possible, avoid any bloating of the scope, any bloating of our tech as well, and do sort of everything really, really good. But in order for us to do that in a timely manner, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to trim down the scope and make it super lean. So with that being said, the actual idea. So the idea is something which is very simple. We're a firm believer that if you're able to solve your own problems, as they say, scratch your own itch, then I'm sure there's thousands, if not tens of thousands, and maybe even millions of people out there in the world who experience the same challenges as us on a day-to-day basis. Now, being a software development agency, what we do is we deliver great software to our clients. But whenever we deliver great software to our clients, what we always have is we go through a process of testing and feedback. And usually we use some of the off-the-shelf tools like TestFlight and like the Google Play internal testing tool to distribute these test environments to our clients. But when it comes to feedback, it's always a little bit disjointed. Some of our clients use our project management system. Some of our clients use like the native TestFlight feedback system. Some of our clients just text us and email us all of their feedback, their screenshots and whatnot. Some of them put it in a spreadsheet, and there just seems to be a little bit of a disconnect. We've always tried to introduce a system around gaining feedback from clients, but it's never really been something which has been seamless. There's always sort of been multiple steps. The client takes a screenshot, writes it down, sends the message. Or the client takes a screenshot, it goes into the Apple TestFlight system, and then we have to pull it from TestFlight into our own environment. So there's always been this sort of like 2 or 3 step feedback process that our clients go through, and it's never been seamless. So we were sitting down a few weeks ago with some of our dev team and sort of chatted through the idea of building out our own solution. And it's a very simple concept where we're building out our own system, which allows our clients to test our software products and provide feedback with one step. And the great thing about that is that the feedback, whether you're on iOS, Android, tablet, web, all congregates into one system. And we're then able to get our development team onto that system, and then they've got all of their feedback and anything that they need to focus on in one place. So that's the crux of the app. Now, there's 1,000,001 ways that we can go down. We can go down the direction of integrating with the likes of Jira and Slack and Monday.com. We've obviously got the Android and the iOS side to things. We've got the web, both from like a desktop perspective or a laptop perspective, and then we've got mobile web that we can go down. We've got a whole web interface that we can go down from a project management side of things. So there's 1,000,001 directions that we can take the product, which is extremely exciting. But what we're going to do is we're going to trim that all down and just focus on the core fundamentals. So with that in mind, I wanted to touch on these key principles that we're going to follow throughout developing this project, and then sort of highlight what the steps we're going to take. And I'm sure, throughout this process, if you're excited and if you're interested, you can follow along as well. So the first thing that we're going to do is focus on half, not half-assed. What we mean by that is trim down the scope, half the features, whatever we feel like is maybe needed, maybe not needed, it's going to get cut straight away. So that means we can focus on a really small scope at a really high quality level, and we'll introduce new features in the future based on feedback and testing and that sort of thing. The great thing about technology, as you guys will know, is we can always be adding new features. We don't have to do everything perfect from day one. So half, not half-assed, is the first fundamental. Second thing that we're going to focus on is momentum. We sort of have like 2 key pillars in-house that we work towards when building out a successful software product. The first one is momentum. Like, you have whatever project you're working on, and I'm sure this works outside of the software space as well, is you have to have great momentum. So we're focusing on momentum, and what we mean by that is every single week there's some form of update, there's some form of progress on the project. Whenever you stop getting momentum, that's where, projects slowly go over to the graveyard and slowly start to die. So we're really doubling down on momentum, and that goes hand in hand with that small scope. The smaller the scope, the easier it is to get momentum and keep momentum. The second and the second key pillar that I mentioned there, we've got momentum. Second key pillar is collaboration. What we mean by that is that, sure, the idea came from a single person, but it doesn't mean that everyone else in the team can't collaborate on it. And what we actually mean by collaboration is challenging as well. We want our design team to challenge the idea. We want them to challenge the scope. We then want our development team to challenge our designers as well. So if our development team think there's an easier way to design something, making sure they feel comfortable challenging them. So throughout this whole process, we're being sort of very, very agile and very sort of scope critical, because it's so much more efficient to be scope critical and try and streamline things, rather than trying to bloat things and not necessarily challenging people from day one. So they're the 3 key things we're focusing on. Keeping the scope super small, super lean from day one. We're just going to launch with an MVP, something that can go out to our existing clients. That's something which is really cool about this product, is we've got an audience straight away. We've got an audience of our existing clients who we know will benefit from this app, and we've got our internal team who will benefit from the app straight away. So keeping the scope lean, focusing on momentum, getting progress every single week, making sure we have a really clear understanding of what's being done and who's working on what. And then finally, collaboration, challenging each other on ideas, making sure that whatever we're doing is 100% focused on delivering that MVP in a super small time frame. So with that in mind, I've given you a quick overview of the product. Next steps from here. So the first thing that I did when coming up with the product idea is I put together a scope. Then from there, delivered the scope to our design team. So we've got an internal design team. We are firm believers on building out blueprints for products. even if it's just like a whiteboard wireframe on what we think's needed. So what I did is I put together that scope, delivered it to the design team, and then we basically cut the scope in half. So we trimmed the scope as much as possible. So we've already done a little bit of a brainstorming and a little bit of a handover between myself and the design team. What they're currently working on is we've got our UI UX guys working on a prototype. So they're going to be working on wireframes, user flows, and then a super simple and clean prototype. Once again, doubling down on keeping things as simple as possible. What we mean by prototype is we have like we use a tool called XD in-house, which is a prototyping tool where basically they can design out all of the screens on what the app will look like, essentially becoming the blueprint for the product. And then once we get there, we'll then hand that over to the development team and they'll start working in more of like a little bit of an agile approach. So the blueprint isn't necessarily set in stone, it's more of like a guidance on where we're heading. So I've done the handover with the design team. They're currently working through that prototyping stage. They're sort of aiming 2 to 3 weeks to get that done. We're going to try and push for 2. And if it goes any longer than 2, we're probably going to look at the scope and see if we can trim things back again. Once the design prototype is done, obviously I'll create a little bit of a video and take you through it just to give you an idea on what we're looking at and some of the key things that we've focused on and some of the key areas that we've tried to streamline things as well. But once we do that, we'll hand everything over to the development team, have a similar conversation. Hey, how can we make this simpler? How can we make this easier? Let's get this done as quickly and as efficiently as possible at a high standard. So that would be the focus there. Design guys do their thing, hand over to the development team. We work in agile development, focusing on that momentum and challenging each other. And then whilst the development guys are working our way, what we're also going to focus on is the marketing side of things. Some people have, in my opinion, this misconception that you have to finalize the software product before you can start marketing. What we're going to do in this case is we're going to focus on getting a really cool brand together and starting some marketing from day one, because there's no reason why we can't start some marketing, get some people on some form of like database or email list, get them to request early access to the product. So as soon as we're ready to go to a public market, they're the first people to be notified. So we've sort of got all these balls moving at the moment, but the idea is that hopefully this builds a little bit of momentum. And the last thing that you want as, say, someone in my position who's more of I guess like a project manager or a product owner in this case, the last thing you want is to just be relying on one person. So I don't just want to be relying on my development team. I want to make sure that we've got development. They're working away, they've got heaps of momentum, they know what direction they're going in. Our design guys are working on the brand, they're putting the brand together. The marketing team are putting together a little bit of a campaign on how we can potentially pre-launch the app and get some users on it. So we've got all of these sort of balls moving at the moment, which is super exciting. And obviously I'll try and continue to put together a little bit of content which takes you through each one of these phases every step of the way. What I'll do is when the design guys are ready over the next couple of weeks, the first thing I'll do is create some content taking you through that process. So you can see exactly the conversations and the thought process we had from the initial scope and the initial idea all the way through to refining that down to like a bare bones MVP. I can't, I guess, reiterate enough how crucial it is to keep that MVP as like streamlined and simple as possible from day one. It just makes life so much easier, particularly when we have a very targeted audience. Our audience is someone we know. It's an audience that we know if we can deliver this MVP, they'll get value from it from day one. And anything that sits outside of it, sure, will add additional value, but it will also add development time and potentially lose momentum as well. So yeah, super interesting, super exciting. I hope you see some value from these videos over the next few weeks. I guess from our point of view, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get this app up and running as quickly as possible. We're currently sitting in the end of July, and our goal is to have like a solid version ready for the public before Christmas. So that means that we've got a lot of development to do, that internal release to our customers, and then whilst our customers are on the platform, we'll continue to build out features to get it to a point where we can go to a full public launch and hopefully people out there find some value from the product as well. So yeah, I'm sure, I hope you guys get some value from this, and yeah, obviously provide any feedback or send across any questions if there's anything that you want to know more specifically about the process that we go through. But in a nutshell, that's essentially where we started. Getting together a scope, got the design team working on a bit of a blueprint for the product, and then prepping our development team and our marketing guys to start pulling it all together. Awesome.